There's one unit that makes it in every quilt I make, and it's the half square triangle. I love making them, and over the last 25 years, I've made thousands and thousands of them, so I have lots of techniques to help you. Today, I'm gonna show you 5 methods, and we're gonna be making 2-inch finished half square triangles, so let's get started with method 1. So first thing is, at Back Quarter Shop, search half square triangle cheat sheet, and there's a 5-page sheet that's gonna give you everything you need for what we're doing today. So print that out, and we're gonna start with the 2 at a time half square triangle cheat sheet. This is the most popular method that you're gonna see written in quilt patterns most often. So to make 2 at a time, you're going to cut the size of your square according to this 3rd column. We're doing the 2-inch finish, so we've cut it 2 7/8. You're gonna put your 2 fabrics, a print and a background, right sides together. Once you've drawn the line from corner to corner, you can use the Creative Grids seam guide and draw a line on each side of that. What that's gonna give you is a 1/4 inch away from the center, both directions. And those right there are gonna be your sewing lines, a 1/4 inch away from the center. So then you're gonna sew, and you see these darker lines are where we sewed. Once you sew that, you will cut the center line right there. That will give you 2 triangles. From there, you will press, and this is how your half square triangles will look. So from here, once you press, you're gonna just trim off these dog ears. And like I said, this is a 2 at a time method. Basically, this one, you take your finished size, add 7/8, and that's your cut size. That's column 3. Your unfinished size is gonna be 3/8 of an inch shorter than that, so 2.5, and they're gonna finish at 2 inches. Now on this method, if you draw your lines very accurately on this step and you sew accurately, you're gonna get a very accurate result. Now this method is the most efficient because this method does have 0 waste, but it does take time to draw those lines. Our second method is making 1 half square triangle at a time. Now this one is the most straightforward. We're gonna be doing 2-inch finished. That means you're gonna cut 2.5 inch unfinished. You're gonna cut that size for both squares, your dark and your light. Put those right sides together, and this time you're gonna stitch directly on that line. That's gonna look like this. Then you're gonna trim a 1/4 inch away. This will be discarded, so this is waste. And then you're going to press, and when you press, this should measure exactly 2.5 inches. Now this method I really like, but I do have a tip for it. So this comes out 2.5, but a trick that I have is if you draw on your line and you stitch a 1/16 of an inch to the right, and then on the side you stitched on, trim right there and press, your half square triangle is going to be slightly bigger and you can trim it down. So if you want to be able to make it bigger, just stitch slightly to the right side of the line and cut on that side. Now this method is accurate if you draw your line correctly. It is slower because you're only making 1 at a time, and it does have more waste than the first method. Our third method is my absolute favorite, which is great because 3, that's my favorite number. So what you're gonna do is get a triangle paper. My preference is to use triangles on a roll. Now, full disclosure, I do own that brand, but I bought it years ago because I loved it so much. And I've been using this for years and years. What you do is however many half square triangles you want, for each square, you're gonna get 2. So if you cut 4 squares, 4 times 2 is 8. So you can actually make 8 at a time, 2 at a time, 4 at a time, however you want. You just take your finished half square triangle size, buy that paper, same thing, put your fabrics right sides together, and then here you're gonna lower your stitch length. You want it to be about 0.5 less than your normal stitch length. You're gonna stitch on the dotted lines, you're gonna cut on the solid lines. So once you stitch, it's gonna look like this, and you can see the dark lines are our stitch lines. From there, you're gonna cut that apart. And when you cut that apart, it's going to look like this. The most important thing when you're working with triangle paper is to stitch exactly on the line and cut exactly on the line for accurate results. And this is a really fast method because just sewing on those lines, very little prep work, and you get 8 half square triangles. This is your most accurate method, and it is not as efficient because you do have to pull the paper off. So that adds time, but you don't have to draw the lines. Another great thing about triangle paper is there's very, very little waste. Now we're moving to our 4th method, and that is page 4 of our cheat sheet. We're going to be making 2-inch finish, so we're going to cut 2 6-inch squares, a dark and a light. On the wrong side of your light fabric, you're going to draw a line on horizontal and vertically in the center. So basically, the very center of your square, you're going to draw a line horizontally, vertically, and then you draw a line from corner to corner. Basically here, you are creating half square triangle paper on your fabric. So you are actually drawing the lines. Now from there, you're going to use this ruler again, and you're going to draw lines a 1/4 inch away from the 2 diagonal lines. You'll put this right sides together and stitch on those diagonal lines. So basically this looks exactly like triangle paper. From here, you cut on your solid line. So you cut here, 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 and here. And that is going to look like this. So this method, compared to using triangle paper, it's less expensive because you don't have to buy the notion part of it. It does take more time just because you have to draw the lines, but it gives you the same results as half square triangle paper. Now on this method, you do have to be very accurate, just like you were on your triangle paper, stitching directly on that line, and you will also make 8 half square triangles using 1 square. Now the last method, you make 4 at a time. So you are starting with 2 squares, and you're gonna cut a 4 1/4 inch square, and I find that on my cheat sheet. Now on the wrong side of this square, you're gonna draw a line only from corner to corner. Put that right sides together, and then you're gonna do something totally different than before. You're gonna stitch a 1/4 inch away from the outside edge. Then you will cut the diagonal lines, and that will look like this. And again, that's gonna create 4 at a time. Now I will tell you, I never use this method because it is on the bias and I feel like it's gonna be a little bit too wavy. I don't like the bias edge, but some people do love this method. It is accurate because once you get to this size, you actually need to trim down a little bit. So then you would take your Creative Grids ruler and just trim that down. So it's got a little bit more work. It has very little waste. This one is slower because you are working with bias edges and you have to trim down and you have to draw the lines. So in summary, here are our 5 methods. The first method, you make 2 at a time. It's the most common. The second method, you make 1 at a time. Our third method, which is my favorite, you use triangle paper for very little thinking. Our fourth method, you make 8 at a time by drawing your own lines. And your fifth method, you make bias half square triangles. So out of the 5 methods I just showed you, which one is your favorite? Let me know. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time on more videos just like this.